We usually start expecting instant results the moment we decide to work on something. Not casually, but deliberately. When we decide to get healthier, improve a skill, or fix something that hasn't been working, we begin watching ourselves closely. We look for signs that the effort is paying off. We expect some kind of confirmation. That's often where frustration begins. Let me explain this through a familiar situation. Mark decided he wanted to lose weight so he could become healthier. Nothing dramatic had pushed him there. He simply didn't feel good in his body anymore. And he wanted that to change. So he did what people are usually told to do. He adjusted what he ate, became more active, and started paying attention to habits he had ignored for years. At first, the effort felt meaningful. There was a quiet sense of resolve, the feeling that he had finally taken control of something. But after a short while, that feeling faded. The scale had not changed. His body felt largely the same, and the daily effort began to feel heavier than it had at the beginning. What made this difficult wasn't only the lack of visible results, it was the uncertainty that came with it. He started questioning himself, not loudly, but persistently. Was he doing this the right way? Was it actually working? How long was this supposed to take? Those questions didn't arrive all at once. They tended to show up at the end of the day, when energy was lower and effort felt harder to justify. This is the part most people don't expect. In the early stages of change, effort usually increases before results appear. The body is still learning how to respond to what's different. Old routines are being interrupted, and new ones haven't settled in yet. From the inside, that doesn't feel reassuring. It feels like commitment without confirmation. There's a gap between effort and evidence, and that gap is emotionally uncomfortable. You're doing the right things, you're showing up consistently, and yet there's nothing concrete that clearly says this is working. That's why the beginning of progress often feels discouraging. Not because nothing is happening, but because feedback arrives later than effort. What's actually happening during this phase is accumulation. Small changes are adding up quietly. The body is adapting gradually. Expectations are being adjusted. A new baseline is forming without any obvious markers. Because none of this announces itself, it's easy to overlook. Silence gets mistaken for failure. This experience isn't limited to health. It shows up whenever effort is tied to a long-term outcome. When learning something new and staying awkward longer than expected. When investing money and seeing very little change at first. When trying to build better habits and still feeling like the same person. In all of these situations, the intention is genuine. The effort is consistent. And the delay is part of the process, even though it rarely feels that way. That's the part we tend to misinterpret. Here's the reframe that matters. Progress doesn't feel like progress at the beginning. It feels like effort without evidence. Not because nothing is happening, but because meaningful change works beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Have you ever looked back at a change in your life and realized It only made sense after it had already taken hold. That's why many people stop early. Not because they lack discipline, but because the mind expects reassurance sooner than change can provide it. Progress doesn't announce itself when it begins. It becomes clear only after it has already reshaped what's underneath. What changes us most often does its work before we notice it.